Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy Show, client edition. So, today's Wednesday, just in case you lost track of the week already. Today's Wednesday, unless you're listening to this on a day that's not Wednesday, then it's not Wednesday anymore. So today we have an incredible person on as the guest. Her name is Elli Karlsson. And I'm going to tell you just a few things about her. Obviously, we're going to get into a lot more here, but she's by nature a very happy-go-lucky, skinny, blonde, who really just likes to have a lot of fun. She recently had a baby. She's done everything under the sun as far as work goes. So the person you think, maybe you see an Instagram picture of this model-looking figure, but you would never know that she's also a truck driver and has worked on the railroad. I mean, she's done everything. So don't judge a book by its cover for sure. But growing up, she had a large family. She's from Sweden, so you'll detect a little bit of an accent there. But we're going to get into this. I'm super excited. Elli, where did we actually first meet?
I was at a leadership experience conference, and I think you had told your story a little bit about.
Oh, also just for the people watching, Elli is holding her brand new baby girl. Super, super cute. So if you hear a little bit of baby coos in the background, that's what's going on. It's part of mom life, building a business with a family.
And it's funny, we're actually doing this at my kitchen table.
Yeah, we can make anything work. So, but I really wanted to bring Elli on here. So we met at this leadership conference. I shared my story. What was your first kind of impression of me, and how has that changed since you've met me or worked with me over time?
It hasn't changed. It's just evolved. And it's gotten more on a friend basis, I think, where when you shared your story, I felt like I was watching my own story, listening to yours. Okay, I am going to have to put her down. Let's put a pause on this. I need to put her down to nap.
So you feel like your opinion of me has evolved, hopefully for the better.
Right, exactly.
No, it's gotten worse.
If not.
Yeah.
No, I know that when you were telling your story, I was like, well, that's kind of how I grew up. I remember I have a really crazy story. We could go on for days, but there is one time in my childhood where we actually had to run away from Child Protective Services in Sweden. And Dad told us to go hide in the hay barn because they were coming to the farm. And so we went and hid, and Dad was coming home from the United States he ran a family practice over in Vernal, Utah. And he was coming over, and then we packed our bags, and then in my head, I remember thinking we're kind of like the Von Trapp family singers, running away in the middle of the night. Shit you not, that's how it was. And we packed a bag or two, a suitcase or two, and we went and moved to Bridgeland there in Utah. And we had a house that we were renovating. Dad bought a house, and we flipped it, and it was to the point where it had 2x4s and plywood, and most of the roof was covered, but part of the roof had a tarp. And as a kid, I was a teenager. I was 11, I think, 10 or 11 at the time. And I actually really liked running through the walls, through the 2x4s, because it was just framed on the inside. but you had to be careful or else you'd trip over the electric wire because it had electricity. And I remember the only room in the house that had so-called walls were sheets that we'd hung up around the bathroom.
And you hope that one stays there.
Well, I did. So that was when you were sharing your story about the house you grew up in. I was like, that's my story. That's kind of my story, or a snippet of my story. But no, we met at that leadership experience, and listening to your story and how you've, overcome your trials and gone after what you've wanted, I was like, okay, that is a person that I can be friends with. Yeah. And then we started talking afterwards, just a little bit, and we set up a time to talk because I was in Vegas, right? So we set up a meeting to talk. You told me what you do. And I was like, this is a guy that I could find. This is a guy that I could put to work in my life. And this is a friend that I could get use out of because I'm very much being inspired by the people I spend my time with and not spread myself too thin. And at this time, I was how many months pregnant?
I don't know, you're probably seven or 8.
I think at that time, I've been to a few of those leadership experiences, and I think it was 4 or 5 months at the time.
I don't know. The first one, you were pretty, you were almost ready to have your baby.
Let's go with that.
I bet it was 7 or 8.
Let's go with that.
4 months, you don't even really look pregnant. Hardly.
That's true.
Especially if it's your first baby, 4 months, you hardly look pregnant. But
that is true.
You were noticeably pregnant. So
yeah.
I think it was a little bit
less than 6 or 7 months pregnant because it was in the spring or summer, and then she was born in November. And so knowing that my time is limited, I really do my best and try and spend my time with people I know can help me get ahead. I think that's so much of who I am, to even back to when I met my husband. I had 2 questions for him, and it was based off of I knew where I wanted to go in my life and who I wanted to be. And if this person was the person that could help me get there, then he was the one. If not, I don't have time for you. Yeah.
So that's actually a really funny story. Tell us more about that. How did you meet your husband? And how did that go? I mean, because this is a funny thing about Elli and I, and you may not get the full impact of this from this podcast. Hopefully you get a good taste of it, but just in case you don't get the full impact, go follow her. Where's the best place to follow you on social media?
Facebook and Instagram.
So her Instagram, I follow you. I mean, you have your Facebook group, which is Machine Strong. So that's her brand, Machine Strong. Machine period strong. Thank you. But I would say definitely go onto her Instagram. That she shares a lot of her, funny daily stories. I guess she's hilarious. She's a very funny person. She could be a comedian if she didn't want to spend so much time exercising. But yeah, share the story of how you met your husband and what that kind of looks like and how that transpired into now you have a beautiful daughter that you just had. And yeah.
So I was how I met him was, you know how you get so many friend requests on Facebook all the time? Mm-hmm. And I was just so over it. And the only people that I accepted, especially from men, were ones I would look at the profile. I was like, okay, they're in trucking, they're in construction, they're a subcontractor, they do, they flip houses, or they're into flipping houses, or they're like a stockbroker, So I only became friends with people that I knew I wanted in my life. Not with people who would just chop my ear off and occupy my time, because at this time I'm running a trucking company, right? And with the CB radio going on all the time, and you can't be on your phone, but you got your headpiece in, and you don't want to spend too much of your time with so much noise around you. And this goes for all truck drivers. If any of you are listening who are truck drivers, or you're married to a truck driver or a construction worker, at the end of the day, we want quiet because we are around so much noise throughout the day. We need to just shut off the noise, and especially that CB radio. And you can't turn it off because you need to hear what's applicable to the job site or what's going on, right? And so I got this friend request from this Dale Millward from Las Vegas. And we have one mutual friend in common, and that was Bob or Bill or something. I think his name was Bob. It's a cousin of his up in Idaho, and who sent me a friend request. I've never met the guy. And so Dale, so I'm in Utah at the time when I get the friend request, right? I'm in the transition of moving my company permanently up to Williston, North Dakota, because I'm running a trucking company up there and leasing a truck through another company for my company, right, to run on his jobs. And I'm then flipping houses in Utah and doing truck semi-fleet wash with a pressure washer for trucking companies, right? And agriculture companies washing out their truck, like their cattle trailers and horse trailers and farm machinery and stuff. So I have clients in Utah that I still need to serve throughout the summer for the season. And then I also have this trucking company in North Dakota that I'm operating and building a network up there and contacts and whatnot, and looking to bring a driver up there and another truck. And so I'm in Utah flipping house at the time, and I'm about a week late going back up to North Dakota, and I'm pulling all-nighters. We actually met on Facebook in June 2019. I'm up in North Dakota. He sends a friend request. We chatted a little bit, but he sends a friend request, and he doesn't introduce himself. So to me, that's like the person that's just creeping up on your profile, but it's just going to hide out, but I'm going to stalk you, right? That's how it came across to me. So finally, or it's kind of like the guy at the bar that buys you a drink, but then doesn't introduce himself. Once you find out who the drink is from the gentleman in the corner, he just sits there, right? So
that's never happened to me. No guys have ever bought me a drink.
So I mean, I can only share my experience and why. And I'm not saying that my thinking is accurate, but that's just my experience. And so finally, but his profile stood out to me, right? And so amongst all these other guys I've befriended, but I was like, even though Dell is in horseshoeing and rodeo, that has nothing to do with my field of interest and growing my company. And at this time, I'm fully dedicated to my business, totally dedicated, not going on a single date at all, right? Because so many times I've postponed my dream of building my empire, thinking that, oh, well, this guy already has his company up and running, so let's work on that, and then I can start building mine later.
So how old were you at this point in time? Just so people who are listening, if you're in that position where you think, oh, well, I'm going to get married, or I'm going to let my spouse, whether it's man or woman, doesn't matter, let my spouse have a successful business. I'm just waiting to find somebody who I can support in their role. How old were you before you decided, I'm going to go build my own dream? I'm not going to worry about waiting for somebody else to build a dream for me.
Well, I never expected them to build a dream for me. I just put their dream prior to my dream.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I can work on my dream on the side. But then I was the bookkeeper for their business. I'm like, well, my dream was like, okay, well, I'll get around to getting my cattle ranch years down the road, I guess. Anyhow, so I was 2019, I'm 34 now. So this was 30, 31, 32. I was 32 at the time 30. I think I was 30 or no, 29. Because I was 30. I'd been running my company for a year when I met my husband. Okay. And so I was 30 at the time. I woke up one morning and I says, enough. I was scraping my eyes I was scraping my face with my hands one morning to wake up. I was a welder up at Kennecott at the Rio Tinto mine there in Salt Lake. It was like 4 a.m. in the morning, and I was also getting ready for a fitness competition. So I was working out super much. I had my clients as well that I was training for free, mind you, just friends that wanted to learn ropes in the gym and help with nutrition. So I was doing that, and I was welding like 70 hours a week, right? And doing my industrial service company, Karlsson Industrial Services. So I'm 30 at the time. Woke up one morning prior to starting my company, right? I'm welding, and I'm scraping my hands, and my calluses scrape my face. And I'm like, and it's winter. I'm like, why do I even do this? I thought to myself, why am I helping someone else build their dream when I have all the skills and the tenacity and fortitude and talent to build my own? I'm like, I'm done. And I still wasn't dating at the time, because I was trying to like see how and when I could start my own company, right? Then that morning, I just texted my boss. I says, this is my 2 weeks notice. And so about a year in to my business, and I had quit my welding job, and I was totally truck driving and doing pressure washing and different services like fencing or welding on the side or helping people on their ranch or doing handyman projects, hauling off furniture to the dump from people that I found off of like, what's that, home advisory app. And I was doing all sorts of things just to create a stream of income, right? As long as it fell under the industrial service. And that's one thing I really liked about having that company, is that you're having your own company. You're not boxed in on what services you can provide. You can do whatever you want having your own business, as long as you just want to do it. Mm-hmm. And so I was then at 31, I was up in Williston, and Dale sent me a friend request, and at once I really felt his profile spoke to me. It just spoke to me, right? And it's kind of like if you're at, let me say, if you're at, have you ever been at like an art gallery and you're looking around and just one painting just really gets you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, his profile spoke to me, right? It just stayed in my head. Well, so we chit-chatted a few lines back and forth. And then he says, yeah, well, I'm here in Vegas, yada, yada. And I'm like, yeah, this, I shit you not. This is what I told him. I texted back. I said, okay, well, I'll let you know next time I'm passing through Vegas. That was me telling him like, hey, okay, well, I don't have time to just chit chat. I got shit to do. I got business to run here, right? Uh-huh. And he got the point, right? So, and because I knew that if I kept talking to him, it would evolve into a relationship. I knew that. Mm-hmm. I knew it would, because of just what I felt drawn to him. And he intrigued me more than, like, nobody's really intrigued me as much as my husband has intrigued me. And so I knew that it would suck me in, right? And so I basically was like, bye, Felicia, right? And then I was in Utah, then a month later, 4th of July, I've been in Utah for about a week, pressure washing and helping my friend flip his house to sell it. And we're pulling all-nighters. I don't even remember how many rock stars and monsters we drank. And I didn't sleep for like 4 days, I believe. We were just painting this house and knocking out walls and spackling and painting and all sorts of things. And on my story, I posted something on my story. I'm standing on top of a ladder, on the top step of a ladder, on a stairs, changing a light bulb in like clogs or something. And I'm like, don't worry, I do this all the time. That was my caption. And so I remember that's the picture that Dell replied to in my story. And so, and it's like midnight sometime on 4th of July at this point. And I remember standing there with my phone in my hand thinking, if I respond to him, then I'm done for. Like, this is it. Like, this will evolve into a relationship and I will find myself in Vegas married sooner or later. Like, I knew that was going to happen. It was just like a matter of fact feeling that I had. And so then, yep, I wrote him back and we started chit-chatting. Well, a couple days later or whatnot, I'm taking off for Williston, and he says, well, I'm on my way to Utah for a family reunion. I'd love to take you on a date. And once again, I says, well, I'm already a week late going back up to Williston. I can't. So I'm sorry. So once again, I'm like, bye, Felicia. I run off to Williston. and then I remember we started FaceTiming. Like every day, and it was something I looked forward to at the end of every day, to like FaceTime him. And then about a month later, he says, I think we need to find a way to get you down to Vegas so I can take you on a date. So he bought a ticket and flew me down here. And like, we knew we loved each other even before I met him in person. That's how strong the feelings were. And I remember one time we were FaceTiming and he totally calls me out. He's like, I was talking, and then he had a look on his face, which threw me off, and I couldn't keep talking. It threw me off. And then he says, okay, hold up, Elli. Now, if the look you just gave me, Elli, if that's not love, I don't know what is. And I said, shit, is it? And I thought to myself, am I that transparent? Like, I'm a horrible liar. And so, like, I kind of knew that he loved me already. I could like just tell by the way he talked. And so I came down to Vegas, right? And then we had, we went camping in the back of his pickup, and he wanted to take his horse trailer. I was like, then we might as well get a hotel. I'm not going to camp in a camper or a trailer. Camping is like real camping outside. I'm like, not in a trailer. So we just threw a mattress in the back of his pickup. And my favorite date is just to hang out on the back of a tailgate at like a fire. That is my favorite thing to do. So that is how we met in person. And then about a few weekends later, I already knew that I was going to move my life down to Vegas, right? And that's why I did the trucking company, because it's mobile and you can go wherever the job is, right? Mm-hmm. Now, moving your paperwork and registering in a whole different state, that's a lot of paperwork. It's very expensive, but I mean, I did it. It's doable. And so I did build my company around my life, because I knew that if I was at the Williston or Utah or anywhere, because I was also looking at buying farmland in Tremonton or Benjamin. Mm-hmm. So having a trucking company in Williston and building a ranch in Utah. That's where I was when I met my husband. That wasn't where my plans were with my business when meeting Dale then put a wrench in my wheel. Like, and like my life went in a total different direction.
Yeah, but the nice thing is it's still, you are still focused on building. I think that's one of the biggest things that hopefully people get out of this, at least this first section of the show, is that you were fully moving in your own direction. You're building your life, and by 30 years old, you had 3 different companies. You're running them in different states, or at least somewhat in different states. And that's such a unique thing. I don't feel like there's a lot of people who are that confident to do that. So what number of kids, are you out of your family?
Number 5.
5 out of how many?
9.
9.
And that's something similar that we have in common.
Yeah, I'm the 7th of 11. But one of the things that's interesting is when you have that many kids in your family and you grew up on a farm, then you're essentially, you've learned how to manage, for lack of a better word, at least a company of 5 people. If you're older than 5 people in your family, not everybody, but a lot of people who grew up in similar circumstances that we did have that kind of just like, you either have to figure it out or it's going to be harder on everybody unless somebody learns how to lead. And so you had that somewhat, I don't know if I would say innate, but just forced upon leadership skills. let's go way far back though. What was the cause of Child Protective Services being called on you very beginning that got you guys out to Utah?
It was like a second or third time back out to Utah, because we would sometimes just come and hang out for a few months and live with Dad. Dad would come home to the farm every so many months or every other month to visit for a week or two before returning back to Vernal to run his practice. He started running a practice, even though my dad is the Swede of the two of my parents, and my mom is the American, kind of flip-flop. Mom lived life in Sweden for 25 years, and Dad ran a business in Vernal for 14, 15, 17 something years. And he did that because you make more money as a surgeon. Now he's retired, a cardiovascular surgeon in the United States versus social medicine in Sweden. And so he opened a clinic in Vernal, having his degree from North Carolina, Eastern Carolina University, right? So he had that, the paperwork or the
credentials
to operate in the United States. And so the plan was just to do it like 5 years, right? 5 years to get some money to renovate, because we're living on a farm from the 1800s that is trademarked, that has to stay looking a certain way, like picture perfect, red houses, white trimming. And so everything had to be renovated from the outdoors, from the indoor and out. Because, and when I'm talking indoor out, like to the point where we had to move houses off of its foundation, dig a basement or put a new foundation on, then roll the entire house back onto the foundation, or tear out the entire floors in a house and redo the entire inside while keeping the outside intact. Or putting the logs back into place where they were. Like there is massive and extensive reparations that had to be done. But so to answer your question, I can't really answer it without giving a little bit of a backstory. So the reason why we're on this farm in northern Sweden, in the little county called Eden, or a town called Eden, was because Dad and Mom bought the farm to teach us kids how to work.
They did that for sure.
And so we all know that we are who we are based off of our experiences, especially the first 7 to 9 years of our life. And so work was thrown upon us. That was how life, this planet, how work or our life revolves, is things happen through work. And if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it for you. Nobody's going to get that wood from the woodshed. Nobody's going to make that cheese. Nobody's going to milk that cow for you. It's your job. If you don't know how to do it, you can ask someone to help you, but it's not their job to help you. It's your job to get it done. If it has to be done, it's your job to get it done. It's not, you don't have the option to choose out of doing the job or choose out of not doing what has to be done. So that is and I think I speak for a lot of my siblings, is our approach to things that need to get done in our life or that we want to get done. It's not something that we can negotiate our way out of. Psychologically or mentally, because that's our belief system. Is we don't shy away from work. We actually, it's perfectly fine. And so we worked a lot, like on a milk and dairy farm, right? We started out with milk sheep. They got copper poisoning from the pipes. So we had to replumb everything and set a whole system up for milk cows. So we did milk cows, and I guess you could say it's like old McDonald's farm. We had all the animals, I shit you not. We had like cows, sheep, pigs, horses, one horse at a time for many years, that we switched out many times. We had turkeys, we had chicken, we had bunnies, and these are all animals that have to be fed, right? So it's not just dairy. And then we had a garden, and then we had a potato field, and then we had a potato field bigger than a football field, you could say. Just like Mexicans eat rice, Swedes, we eat potatoes almost to every meal. And then on top of that, we fed potatoes to the pigs. So we had to raise enough potatoes for the animals and us, right? For the pigs and us. And then on top of that, we had rows and rows and rows, long rows currant bushes, black currant, red currant, rhubarb, strawberries, all sorts of berries, you could say. And like, it was a self-sustaining farm, right? And Dad and Mom taught us how he did fashion design back in the 70s. He was a fashion model, then he became a fashion designer. So he was all into textiles as well. And so he taught us how to knit, or he taught my oldest siblings how to knit, and then they passed it on to the younger ones, right? So he taught us how to knit, how to weave, how to spin wool on Rumpelstiltskin, like spinning wheel. I kid you not, like I was sitting there
pushing your pedal down,
pushing my pedal, had the wool from our own sheep up on the spindle, and I'm like threading my own wool that we knit our own socks with and our own hats with, like. And then for extra padding in our beds, we had the fur from the sheep, like the skin. Like if we wanted an extra soft mattress, that was we didn't go to Kohl's for a bed cover. We went into the linen closet and got extra skin of wool, sheep skin. And so we were working all the time, and we were doing homeschooling on top of that. Well, homeschooling as far as learning how to read and write.
You were home.
We were home.
That's what I tell people about my homeschooling experience. And this is not to diminish anything my parents did do, because I think they put in above and beyond any effort that could be put in. I didn't like it. So I was more rebellious than the most, you could say. And so for me, it was really difficult to continue to do the actual schooling that was necessary to be considered homeschool. So I feel like I was home and I worked a lot, and my education was actual work, and just life rather than just
academic.
Yeah, rather than just academic. And there's nothing wrong with, I don't think there's anything wrong with either one, but definitely we did more of just, I did more. I should speak for myself, because every one of our siblings, at least for me, I feel like we all got very different experiences with education. So I could say for myself, I got more of a hands-on, actual working type of education rather than academic education. Barely passed my GED. No, literally, I passed it by 2 points. If I would have got 2 points less on my math, then I would have failed my GED. Wow. So barely. I took my ACT 3 times, and the second time I took it, I got a 17, and my 14-year-old little sister got a 19. And I was like, this is stupid. Yeah. So I was never really great in academics, but from a position of work or just can I get things done? I feel like I've always, I don't know if I would say I've excelled, but I've always been able to get done what needed to get done. So
funny you say you use the word excel, because I was thinking that word and then you just said it.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it's interesting. So this leads to Child Protective Services coming, you rushing to Utah, but I think the whole story, if you listen to it, leads to an idea of personal responsibility and personal accountability for your situation, and not necessarily not allowing somebody else to take responsibility if they want to, whatever, but you're not going to relinquish your own responsibility out of a situation. And I think that goes to how conscious I know you were conscious, but why is it important rather to be conscious of who we spend our time with from a personal growth and development perspective, not just from a time perspective. Obviously you had time constraints and you just wanted quiet, and that was part of it. But the other part of it was you knew where you wanted to go, and you only wanted to be around people who were going to take you there or help you get there, rather than be around people who were going to distract you. Why was that so crucial, especially looking back? Why was that such a crucial choice for you, to put kind of business and where you want to go in your life over just friendship for the sake of friendship?
Because the people I spent time with in the field in the construction industry. So when I came to the United States, I was going to BYU because I came here when I was 19. I graduated from high school in Sweden with an LPN degree. And then I was like, oh, I want a degree in the United States, just like Dad has, in case, depending on what country I want to live in. I can work as an LPN in Sweden, or I can work as as a dentist in the United States.
What does LPN stand for?
Licensed practitioner nurse.
Okay.
So I wanted to give myself, and I knew that I was adventurous, right? So I wanted to give myself the flexibility of having 2 different careers in 2 different countries. And so I came to the United States, and so hanging around, my career was very male dominated at the time, or still is, right? But at that time in my life was very heavily male dominated. And the men I dated, of course, they had started their business at like 26, 24, 25, and it was already up and rolling, and a machine where it was making money on their own, by its own, when they could remove themselves from having to work every day, you know? And so when I decided to run my own company at the age of 30, I was like, I'm late into the game. But I had very, very good contacts and a very strong network in the construction industry, all the way from oil field to firefighting to concrete, like building roads, to building railroads, to oil field. Like I had a lot of connections, very good connections. And I was very well known by my name and my work ethic. They knew that Elli Karlsson gets the job done. They knew that Elli Karlsson is dependable. They knew that Elli Karlsson is honest no matter what. I remember one time on the railroad, a buddy of mine one of the guys I oversaw, he threw a spike. We were just cleaning up like trash and extra metal after we had built the track, and he threw it into the forest instead of putting in the bucket. And that computed to me, I was like, that is ethically wrong. Like, that's wrong. That's sweeping trash under the rug is wrong. And so, like, my foundation for what is honest is so set in stone. Like, I don't really deviate no matter what, right? And I don't know if that's also because, like, we got whipped so much as a kid. Because if dad had thought that we had told a lie, or if we weren't working hard enough, or if the things that should have been done weren't done, like we got whipped all the time. So I don't know if that was programmed to me, to be honest, but that is what I took away from all the whippings, was like, I'm an honest person to my core. Now I don't know if that it's because of the whippings, but I remember even as a little child, I've always had automatic intelligence when it comes to understanding spiritual concepts. And I think knowing who you are it's very easy to have self-confidence when you know who you are and stand by your choices no matter what, when you really know who you are. So I don't know if it has to do with my strong relationship with my Heavenly Father and my existence, or with the whippings.
Yeah, I don't know, but I would agree that it's funny because people are like, well, Sam, how are you so confident in life? How do you not care what other people think? It's like, because I just know what I think. And so I don't care what other people think. Like, I'm so confident in what I know. I'm not so confident that I'm not willing to hear other people's perspectives. Right. So I'm definitely open to hearing and saying, okay, well, you might be right. Let's hear it. Let's have a talk. Yeah. Let's have a conversation. Let's debate it. I'm not saying I'm right, but it's going to take a while or take some real conversation for somebody to tell me that I'm wrong, like for them to correct me. But that's a lot of because I just know inside of myself what I believe, and I don't care if it's my family or friends. I'm going to do what I feel is right. And if somebody's like, well, I think that what you're doing is wrong. Okay, have a nice day. Like, it doesn't really affect me. And I think that that's a key concept that I hope that everybody goes back, re-listens to. You don't really have to worry about what is, as long as you're doing and acting based on what you know to be right and your core. If you know what is right at your core and you are at least in alignment with yourself, then that is the key to personal confidence, in my experience, and moving all the way back to my life, that's where I've gotten my biggest confidence boost from, is knowing, hey, at least I know why and where and what I'm doing. So definitely look at that. So how does that then translate into, because you got married, moved to Vegas, for a large part, divested from a lot of your companies, and now you've started your own kind of completely separate thing that I understand it's not brand new to you. You guys got to think about this, and really to fully understand this, you just got to go look at her on like social media and see who she is to really understand what we're talking about here. But she was doing a fitness physique, like a female fitness competition. So she's not this ugly person who can't get a job anywhere else. She's a beautiful person. You would never know she's working at the railroad. She's working as a welder or anything. If you saw her in her on a Saturday night out of the club, you would never guess what she does for work. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So how does that go from such a, we'll say, male-dominated industry, and not just industry, but like hard labor, backbreaking labor industries, into what you do now? Tell us a little bit more about your company now and what your goal is and why you do it.
My company now is, so truck driving, like I was saying, I built that company around my life, right? What I wanted to accomplish. And so when 4 or 5 weekends after dating my husband, or my boyfriend, now husband at the time, I remember it was a Tuesday. I actually went down to Utah to look at a truck, and instead of taking it to work up in North Dakota, I put it to work in Utah. I connected up. I got in contact with all my Connect trucking buddies in Utah and asked if they had a job that I could run on. And so I was able to do that and lease a trailer from another guy and drive his trailer until I had the funds to buy my own trailer to haul dirt and gravel and sand and whatnot. And so I remember I was trucking in Utah on a job, and I'm driving up there above, what's that big mountain above the outlets?
Traverse Mountain.
The Traverse Mountain, way up there.
The point of the mountain.
The point mountain.
I don't know what that's actually called.
We're way up there. It's a Suncrest or whatever. Uh-huh. And I'm coming down the switchbacks there. And my husband, I remember talking to him on my headpiece, and he's like, and my plan was to fly down to Vegas for the weekend. And he says, okay, is there anything in particular you want to do this weekend? And I listened to this song about, we've got nothing else going on, so why don't we get married? Something. It was like a country song. So being in the mood of shits and giggles, I'm like, well, you want to get married? And without even skipping a beat, he says, sure. And I says, wait, you don't even want to think about it? No, what's there to think about? I'm like, well, this is a pretty big decision. He's like, there's nothing for me to think about. And because I already knew when I was up in North Dakota, I remember I was driving to the gym after trucking all day, and I remember turning left at a light. Isn't it funny how so many things that are impactful, you remember exactly when and where you were, right? At that point, mm-hmm. when something happens. And so we were talking my headpiece again, and turning left to go onto the road to take you to the gym, and he said something. I can't remember what he said. And I says, oh, you're that confident or whatever, huh? How are you that confident that I like you, or that we're going to have a future together, or something like that? It was pretty profound, something he had let slip. And he says, well, I am speaking with you with intention. I'm like, okay. So he's not just chatting with me to get the feel for who Elli is. He's like, okay, I've got a goal. This is what I want. And that to me was very a turn on, because I'm like, okay, this is what I am all about. I'm like, I have this goal. This is what I want. This is X, Y, Z, what I have to do to get there. So that was like, oh, well, hey there. And so I remember, so trekking down this hill on his lunch break, he calls me and I says, "You want to get married?" And he says, "Sure, why not?" And so I moved my company down to Vegas. Long story short, we're very good at tag teaming things that need to get done, him and I. It's gotten better and it's getting better. Because, and so we tag team and talk to his connections here in Vegas to get my truck on jobs here in Vegas, right? And so, anyways, that weekend, we eloped to the little Chapel of the West. It was August 31st. So mind you, we started chatting for reals the 4th of July. And then we got married. We got married by August 31st.
Yeah, that's fast.
And so I go then back to Utah after the weekend. I'm trucking along and nobody knows we're married at this point, except for a handful of his friends that were at the wedding. He told one buddy, and the one buddy told the rest of the crew of his crew of friends. And I told a couple of my friends that showed up, like girlfriends, but that was it. Very close girlfriends, like 2 or 3. I think one was Sarai and one was Kelsey. And I think that was it for my girlfriends that showed up or that I even told. And so it was funny when I tell them, "Hey, so I'm getting married this weekend and I want you there." None of my friends, they know that once I've made a choice, I stand by my choice. I don't unchoose my choice because I don't go back in life. I always go forward. I don't know why, but I always go forward. And I don't, because I think you can't rewind the clock. Mm-hmm. You can't rewind your progress in life. Like you're always moving forward. So I don't unmake choices. And so my friends, when I call them up and say I'm getting married, they know they shouldn't like question me or or
try and talk you out of it.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, I guess she's made her mind up.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So we get married and then we pull strings to get my company down to Vegas. Well, February, by this time, okay, so then we get sealed in Salt Lake Temple November 21st. And that was a hard pill for my family to swallow because I told them the night prior that we were married. And I can't speak for what they're feeling, but for me, I was like, well, it's my marriage. Yeah, I'm selfish about it. I don't have to include my family. If I wanted to elope, I wanted to elope. That's one whole thing about eloping is not telling people.
Yeah, it would be fun to elope. If I did it over again, I would have talked Charlotte into eloping with me.
And that's why I was like,
or I would have tried. I can't promise it would have happened, but I
wanted both. I wanted the experience of eloping, having that secret thing you do with your husband, but I also wanted the fun of a wedding. So I was like, all right, we can do that. We can do that. So we eloped, we got married, and then a few months later, before the Salt Lake City Temple closed in December 2019, right? It closed for renovations. Then we was able to get a day in to get sealed. And so we were able to pull off the whole reception and the fun and the friends and the dancing and all that. And so people's hearts, a lot of feelings got hurt in the process of my family. My friends didn't really care, but I had some family members that they felt like I hadn't involved them. And I'm like, well, okay, thank you for sharing me that you're hurt because your feelings are important to me. But I stand by my choices in that I feel like this was what I wanted. And so it was okay for me to be that secretive about my life and my marriage. Anyhow, it was kind of like a feeling of, what me and my husband can get away with. Like you and your best friend can get away with shit. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that feeling. And
It'd be fun.
I really liked it. So anyways, we moved my life down to Vegas. That was really, really hard on me. Really, really like mentally and emotionally hard on me because I did not plan on living life in Vegas. I was set on living a ranch life in Utah and yeah. But I chose Dale because I knew that he would be a very good father for my children. And then I was very intrigued with him more than I have with any other man in my life, was super intrigued. So I knew those two things were going for me, right? And plus that he was now active. He had been like 25 years inactive in the gospel, but now he had like overhauled his life and he was back active again. but he has a 5-year-old daughter here in Vegas. So I was then, of course, having to move here. He couldn't move with his daughter back to Utah. And so then I got pregnant in February. So to answer your question, how I got into what I'm doing now, with the mentality of building my business around my life, I'm like, I remember, now this may be too graphic for some people, but I'm going to say, if you don't like graphics, like they also say in Grey's Anatomy, don't watch the show. Mm-hmm. If you don't like graphics, don't listen to this podcast. Sorry, Sam.
At least the next part. Yeah, that's good.
So I got really constipated. Second trimester hit me and I got really constipated trucking from 4 o'clock in the morning to 6, 7 p.m. at night. And exercising too. I kept being active as a way of keeping my bowels going, and taking psyllium husks, and that's something you do in the fitness industry. Is when you eat a lot of food, you need the highway, you need to keep the traffic going. So you take you take a scoop of psyllium husk powder, fiber, like everyone should do, is eat fiber, but it's more prioritized in the fitness industry because we, of course, pay more attention to our nutrition. And so, but no matter what I was doing, I still got super constipated. So after like 2 weeks of not being able to go to the bathroom, now your eyes are getting big, but let me tell you, no one talks about this. And this is what I'm talking about, bringing awareness. And when being pregnant, talking to things about my husband, he's like, I did not know that. Even postpartum, he's like, I did not know this. And I'm like, Dale, you've been married twice and you've had a daughter with a girlfriend. So how have 3 women and also your mom and all of your sisters not talked to you about the things that women go through?
I don't know, but I'm grateful that I'm not a woman most days. and
I think it's very important for people to know, so they know how to support, to know what their spouse is going through so they can be supportive of that. And so I got super, super pregnant or super constipated, right? And I looked up on Google, like constipation during pregnancy. And it said, yes, second trimester, your intestines, they slow down to absorb more nutrients. Oh, and well, the fact is I'm sitting all day, every day, right? Mm-hmm. So that didn't help at all. So, and then all that pressure, my uterus and all just sitting there, like I was physically ill. Ugh. But it said to not take laxatives. So I was like, what do I do?
Right.
Like I was at the point, I remember parking the truck outside in the driveway, my semi truck. I pulled up one night and I was like, Del, I physically cannot do this anymore. I thought I could be pregnant and truck driving and then just have the baby back in the sleeper and keep trucking, and then nurse crawl back there and nurse when I need to nurse. But and still operate this trucking company while pregnant. And I could hire a driver, but I didn't want to do that with the insurance, how it is here in Vegas, in Clark County especially. And so I physically couldn't run my company anymore. And so I was like, okay, what am I good at? Just like when I started my industrial service company, I was like, okay, what am I good at? And what skills and talents do I have to build a company around my life? And I was already way into fitness already. So I was like, okay, I can do fitness and therefore also maintain a more healthy body when being pregnant and prioritize being healthy when being pregnant instead of how so many people just let their body go when pregnant because you don't have the motivation. And I haven't worked so hard in physical fitness as I have when pregnant because you do not want to work out. You don't. But you have to understand what dedication is. There are times in your life when you're motivated and inspired, motivation from other people and inspiration from yourself, and then dedication. When dedication gets you out of bed and gets the job done, right? Is sticking to the decision you made at the time when you wanted to do it. And so I was dedicated to staying fit and healthy, knowing that healing my body afterwards would go a lot easier and faster if I stayed fit throughout my pregnancy. And so then I was like, okay, what company can I start when I'm pregnant? And I can build around my life. And I was like, okay, fitness. I can do it with all the trucking stuff. So I liquidated all of my assets with the trucking and the industrial services, like all the equipment. And piece after piece, I sold them off. And then I just started doing fitness full time and really learning social media. That is hard.
It's a whole nother world, isn't it?
It's a whole nother world, social media. And it's something that my husband, he is 17 years older than I am, and he doesn't understand how the world has progressed to marketing is through social media.
He could kill it if he wanted more clients on TikTok and Instagram Reels. Yeah. He could do so good there. But
my husband doesn't need more clients. He needs less clients. He is so busy. He actually wants less work. So, but my husband, he's been running his company for 25 years now, right? Mm-hmm. But starting a company, especially during COVID, how do you do that without social media?
I don't know. Honestly, it would be tough.
Yeah. So learning the game of social media, how to not be spammy, how to show your life, be relatable, not to be too vulnerable, but vulnerable enough to where people can relate to you, but not too vulnerable, because then you have a husband to care about, because he's like, hey, he's more a private person than I am. Mm-hmm. And so I have to be cautious of his feelings.
Yeah, especially, and that's such an interesting dynamic when you first get married, because there's so many conversations that I was training a team, and they're like, well, wouldn't you, if somebody's engaged, do you really have to involve the partner into this specific conversation? I said, yeah, like, just because somebody's engaged, although it's not, a lot of things are not discussed. Who's going to take care of the kids? Wasn't discussed with my wife and I.
Not me either. Holy crap, that's the fight we had.
Who's going to take care of the money? Who's going to be in charge of doing the laundry? Who's going to be in charge of cleaning the house? Like all this stuff that it's just not discussed, right?
Because let me ask you this: you had your expectations of how things were going to go, right? I know for me and my husband, we've had a relationship coach, and the coach was like, well, marriages fail because of expectations that are not met.
False expectations.
So Dale had his expectations of how marriage was going to be, and I had my expectations of who was going to take care of the baby, how the house stuff was going to be done, who was going to be doing the money, and I'm bringing in just as much money, mind you, as Dale is. My business is making just as much money as Dale's business was. And so, like, who does the house? So now I've got my business, he's got his business. And so who takes care of the home and the baby? Yeah. And he's like, well, that's what you do. And I was like, huh?
No, I've got a business.
Right.
Yes. So it's funny because like all of these things, and it's part of just understanding life, but these things aren't really discussed pre-marriage. And so for somebody to be coaching or to be working with somebody and have just like, oh, you're engaged, well, let's just make the decision with you and not your engaged partner. I know they're not married. And to a certain degree, you don't want to be married to somebody who's going to control your whole life. So you don't necessarily want to give them that type of control, but it is something that you, from a coaching perspective, mentorship perspective, you have to be aware of. It's like, who's going to facilitate this conversation? It's my personal opinion now, having been married and having sat down with multiple people in their relationships. I think that there's such a need to have these conversations beforehand in a relationship to create a stronger relationship and to create clarity. Because just as you said, that's where most people are struggling. For me, I think that everybody should have to take a course on marriage. And most marriage courses, I feel like marriage prep, especially in the religion, I'm LDS as well. Yeah. You take a marriage prep class and it talks about the spirituality of marriage. It talks about a conflict resolution. It talks about the emotional side of marriage, but it doesn't really talk about, I haven't ever been to one. I've been to quite a few. It doesn't really talk about, I'm like, okay, what tactically, who's in charge of vacuuming? Like, who's in charge of cleaning the dishes at the end of the night? Is that even important to you?
Right.
My wife and I, we were dating, and we were at her house, and her dad like really likes to have the kitchen clean at the end of the night, which is fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with having a clean kitchen or not a clean kitchen, right? And during that period of time in my life, cleaning is somewhat of a soothing thing for me, so I don't mind cleaning. And whenever I was at their house, it was an easy way for me to pitch in and help around the house that I'm a guest in. And so I would often help clean up after every meal and clean the dishes and do things like that. Well, we were all finishing cleaning up one time, and her dad was like, well, now, Charlie, you're going to have to learn how to keep the house clean. Exactly. It's like, because Sam, he likes a clean house. And it was really interesting, because it was like, well, that's not one.
Was it dead silent after that comment?
I don't even remember. But the point is, it's just like,
I would tiptoe through this.
The funny thing is, the truth is, I don't really care if there's dishes left over. Like, dishes could go 2 or 3 days, and I wouldn't, like, 90% of the time, I don't really care. And then when I'm ready to do them, I'll just do them, right?
That's come home. I've had to adopt as of this year is learn to let things go. And that is dishes.
It's just fine. Like, so for me, I'll come home in the middle of the day. I don't know whether Charlie does or doesn't want to do dishes, but when I'm ready to do dishes, if there's dishes there, then I'll just do them. You know, like, I don't think about it. If I want to vacuum the floor, I'll vacuum the floor. I don't think, oh, that's her job, she should do that. Or I haven't got to spend time with all the kids all day, and she has, so I need to spend time with the kids and like prioritize that stuff. I just do what I want, and she does what she wants, and we've got kids, and we kind of figure it out. And sometimes she says, no, Sam, you need to go spend time with the kids. I will clean. I'll do whatever. I need some time alone. You go do something with the kids, you know, but it's a conversation, but a lot of those conversations were never had for most couples. Yeah. And I think it's such an important part of marriage and just building, especially when you have two entrepreneurs, two businesses. That should be a course, a required pre-marriage course for people to really understand how to run a marriage effectively and a business at the same time. And it should be required to get a marriage license.
And for those who don't, there are relationship coaches that can help you navigate.
Yeah. If you missed that before time, definitely get it done after. But it's just something that, like, a marriage contract, and it's pretty crazy, but a marriage contract is more, in many ways, it's less protected. It's harder to get in and out of than a business partnership. And there's a bigger financial impact on your life when you get married than even when you start a business. Mm-hmm. And to not recognize that and think that a marriage license is all about love and friendship and all this other stuff, when it's like, a marriage is the biggest financial commitment and contract that you're ever going to make in your life, and understanding that, how those nuanced together, and how much a marriage is like a business, and is not just I love you, you love me, we want to have sex, or whatever the reason somebody gets married is. Understanding that it actually is a financial contract, I think, is severely underplayed in our society. Mm-hmm. And we could go a lot farther and have a lot more people be successful if they understood, no, marriage is a financial contract. So anyways, that's just something I'm thinking about. But so your business now, it's called Machine Strong. They can find it on Instagram, Facebook. What exactly are you doing to help your clients?
I'm helping them develop the mental fortitude and the mentality to, once you've made a choice, you stick with it and you just drive forward like a machine, like relentlessly like a machine, to get it done. And that is something that I've acquired being raised on a farm. That is something that's a concept that we use in construction. And even, with my husband, we made a decision to move our company down to Vegas. We found a way to get it done. Dale and I decided to get married. We didn't know each other, but we're finding out a way, and we're figuring out how to know each other. We make decisions, and then we figure it out. And the same thing is, it goes back to being raised on a farm. If there's a job that needs to be done, you figure it out. And in construction, you have to figure things out. You make a choice like, hey, I'm going to build this. Now you have to figure it out. And then problems come up on the job site, or you can't build something the way it needs to be built, or equipment breaks down. And you have to problem solve, but you still relentlessly, you're moving forward. You're always moving forward in construction, and you have that machine drive. Like, that's how I relate to it. Like, and especially in construction, you leave your feelings at home, and especially in a male-dominated environment, I've had so many bosses yell at me in the face, and I just have to put my feelings aside and just like, are we done yet? Like, are we done with the screaming yet? Just be a machine. You have to, sometimes we have to take our emotions out of things, because we're not going to feel the want to do something that we've decided to do. So that is when dedication comes in, and you just start your machine and you go. You go to the gym even if you don't want to. You eat healthy even if you don't want to. You do the job even if you don't want to. You wake up, you go to work, you operate the machinery, you operate like a machine to get the job done. And if it's not working, well, just like a machine, you push harder.
I love that. I think that I didn't ever realize so much how your brand is all about dedication. So this is a final question, and this is about legacy, and how you want to be remembered in 6 generations from now. So you have your daughter, Clara, and you have your stepdaughter, but in 6 generations from now, so this is your great, 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 great grandchildren. They were sitting around the dinner table discussing your life, the impact you had, and the legacy you left. What do you want them to be saying about your legacy 6 generations from now?
That I was a person of certainty, that once I made a choice, I stuck with that choice, and I was certain about my choice. I didn't second guess myself, and because the way you can be successful, or Elli is successful at everything she did, Grandma Elli was successful at everything she did because she made her choices the right choice. You don't think, oh, did I make the wrong choice? Well, you can make whatever choice you want, but just stick with it, make it the right choice. So like, I know many times, like I always counsel with the Lord, be like, hey, what decision? I have these 2 or 3 decisions. If there's one you want is more favorable for me, please let me know. Please give me the insight. But that's not really too often how I go about it. I just say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. If you don't want me to do it, then let me know. And then I just go ahead and do it. And then if it is the wrong choice, if it is the wrong road, guess what? You're going to find out sooner or later. And then you make you reroute your path, because you know that plan A didn't work. So that's a process of elimination to keep moving forward in your decision to like, well, I do want a ranch in Utah someday. And that will happen sooner or later. Like, I'm making steps to make that happen.
Yeah, no, I love it. And if you, the more you follow Elli on Instagram or Facebook, Machine Strong is at Machine Strong on both Instagram and Facebook.
I have a Machine Strong Facebook group. Yep, just Machine Strong. It's a private group on there. And then Elli Karlsson with a K and 2 S's. Because originally I was Swede Machine, but not too many people can relate to being Swedish, of course. But still, and then Swedish people do have a way of certainty about them, right? And to keep my authenticity, being a Swede, I kept my spelling of my last name. So just Karlsson with the K and 2 S's. So on my Facebook profile, it's just Elli. The Swedish way of spelling it is ELLI, Elli Karlsson, KARLSSON. And then on Instagram, yes, you can find it. It's searchable under Elli Karlsson, but also just Machine Strong.
Awesome. Cool. Well, go follow her and just take her words of wisdom every day. She's not only is it funny, but she's very educational as well. And like, she'll make you think about, I haven't thought about life in that way. So think about that. And then also give her a shout out. take a screenshot, post it on your Instagram of you listening to this episode and say, yes, I believe based on what I heard that you're going to be remembered as somebody who literally just made her choices the right choices. Because she makes a lot of choices. And a lot of people think, oh, I wouldn't have done it that way probably. But that's okay because it doesn't matter because she's decided that it's the right way for her to do it. So we'll meet you guys next time on Fuel Your Legacy Show.
Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me. And if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.